This vote on health care that's happening today, what do you think about the Republican plan right now as it stands?
Well, as I said a few days ago, the plan that's currently before the House of Representatives would cost the Commonwealth of Mass at least $1 billion, probably more. We're certainly not the only state for whom this is an issue, and I remain deeply concerned that this particular bill, and admittedly there are still facts to be learned about it, it's not completely clear what every element is, would be a very difficult pill for the Commonwealth to swallow. And my hope is that folks will basically put it away and come up with something else. Because I certainly think there are plenty of things we could do to fix the Affordable Care Act. I mean, I've written fairly long and some would say wonky and nerdy letters about all the things that could be done to fix the Affordable Care Act to members of Congress, and we've had conversations with both the Obama and the Trump administration about that. But my big concern about the bill today is that it would cost the Commonwealth $1 billion, and I think I would like to see a different plan.
Last night there was a fan permanently banned from Bentonville Park. Do you think that was actually sort of more heavy-handed approach to taking this a long time ago?
I can't speak to the longitudinal issues here because I just don't know them, but I am glad that last night, when the issue was raised by the fan and the folks at the ballpark confronted the fan and the heckler, I think the ball team did the right thing. And I said the same thing about if they figure out who the guy was from the night before, I hope they ban him forever too. There's no place for that anywhere in American society.
Governor, if this health care plan goes through today, will Massachusetts have to cap enrollment in Mass Health or cut back on benefits?
Well, remember, this is a long process, right? This is the House of Representatives. The legislation would still need to move through the Senate. There were many Republicans as well as Democrats in the Senate who spoke out against the previous proposal that was put forth before the House that they didn't vote on. And we would continue to work with other governors and with our congressional delegation and others to try to make sure that in the end, whatever happens here, if something happens, it works for Massachusetts.
The revenues yesterday came in very disappointing. What are we going to have to do with that?
Well, we track the revenue stuff month over month, and we said earlier in the year that we were concerned that we might be spending beyond our means, and we had some back and forth with the legislature about that. But we've been planning and anticipating that we might have a shortfall at the end of this year, and while those April numbers are disappointing, we're going to continue to work on a plan and a strategy for dealing with that both this year and next year that preserves our investments in local communities and in local aid and in a lot of the critical programs that matter to people.
Last question. In light of yesterday's accident up in Billerica, do you believe that the auto auction industry is something that needs to be more regulated, better regulated? Is that something that has ever been addressed by the state?
What happened yesterday was a terrible tragedy, and it's currently under investigation, and I really want to wait and see what the results of that investigation are before we decide what, if any, next steps we should take. The folks are working hard to figure this one out, and I would like to know a little more about what actually happened and why before I draw any conclusions about what next steps would be.
Thank you,
but
everybody.
It was a horrible tragedy.
Thanks, everybody.
Is the economy tanking? We've seen a couple of indications. In your view, is the economy taking a turn for the worse?
Well, keep in mind that in Massachusetts right now we have more people working than we've had at any point in the state's history. Very low unemployment rate, over 120,000 net new jobs created over the past couple of years. I think the big issue for us is, there are two things going on. One is personal income growth has been modest, 1 or 2% a year, but it's been that way for the better part of the past 3 or 4 years. People have talked a lot about the fact that the recovery post-recession, not just here in Massachusetts, but around the country, has been a sort of 1%, 2% per year growth. And I think the big challenge for those of us in the public sector is to make sure we continue to invest in the stuff that helps our state and our communities grow, which means the types of investments we've been making in education and workforce development, and in industries where we have big competitive advantages, whether it's biotechnology or life sciences or cybersecurity or advanced manufacturing. But we also have to be cognizant of the fact that this has been a very slow growth economy for quite a while, And that means we need to make sure that we plan for what I would continue to believe is going to be modest growth going forward. I don't tend to make decisions about the long term based on a month or two's worth of data. I think that's in either direction, up or down. And I think obviously we are in what I have said many times is a modest growth scenario, and I think we need to plan accordingly. We're not going to have, big, huge rates of growth in tax revenue going forward unless suddenly personal income starts to explode. And personal income growth has been relatively modest now for several years, not just here, but everywhere.
This is still a spending problem, not a revenue problem?
Look, I think we need to be careful about how we term this particular problem at this time. What I've said for a while is we're dealing with a low growth environment in terms of personal income growth. It's been that way for a while. And we need to make sure that we adjust state government accordingly while continuing to make the investments in our local communities and our economy and our schools that people expect us to make.
Thanks, everybody. We gotta go, okay?
Is there room for more cuts, or is it new taxes we're going to have to be
Well,
looking
we obviously have to do some work on that. The April results have been out for a day. Why don't you give us at least a couple more to figure out what the next move is?
Thanks,
That's what
everybody.
people want to know, right, Governor? Are there taxes going on? What
Well,
can
we've
you tell
said
them?
before that we're not going to raise broad-based taxes, and there's nothing about this that would change our mind on that. I mean, these revenue results are disappointing, but we have to figure out a way to manage it. As I said before, if you have really modest personal income growth, that means that people, for the most part, are doing okay, but no better than that. And they pay taxes, and we should be very careful about digging deeper into their pockets when they're probably digging pretty deep into theirs just to pay for their own goods and services.
Thanks, everybody. We gotta go,
Thanks.
okay?